Alright, here we are then. Welcome everyone and a very good evening here at the 1UP Racing Season 23 Round 9, the ERT of Spain at the wonderful circuit, the Catalunya near Barcelona. I'll be your host for tonight. My name is Sky and I'll be taking you through this sprint weekend after we resume after a week break. 4 more races that we have up here on this calendar, with tonight, if results go a bit favorable towards our championship leader, it could already be a decider, but more about that later. First off, all the information, because this is a sprint weekend, so you will need to know something about that and how that is going to go. So first off, the points. In a sprint race, the first place driver is going to score 12 points, goes all the way down to P12, which scores 1 point. And for the normal 1UP Racing points, also to take you through that, in the main race, if you finish first, 20 points, second place 17, third is for 14 points, fourth is 12 points, fifth place will be 10 points, and sixth you'll get 8. And then from 7th down to 12, from 6 to 1 point, and also a single point will be awarded to the driver in the top 10 who finishes the race with the fastest lap, and outside of the top 10, the fastest lap will also get 1 point. Now for the race, as you can see on the overlay, the amount of laps are shown there. We have a few different rules that we have set a little bit different because some issues are happening with the game for that. The formation laps, which we saw earlier in the season, will be set to off because there's a glitch with them, and red flags will be set to reduced because it seemed to work nicely in our last race 2 weeks ago in Belgium. To take you back to Belgium, I'll show you the calendar once more. Last time out in Belgium, we saw one of our drivers join the 1UP Racing winners list with a first ever win for Hookie, so big shout out to him. That moves him up a little bit into the standings as well, but Hookie still finds himself in P11 in the standings there, but a great result from him, massive performance, and yeah, like I said, his first race win, so something to be very, very proud of. Today we have our sprint weekend in Spain. As you can see, next week we'll be in Singapore. In 2 weeks time we'll have our race at Silverstone, and then the season finale will be the Circuit of the Americas on November 12th with another sprint weekend. So today our third sprint weekend of the season out of 4 in total. Now today here at the Circuit de Catalunya we'll be using the more harder compounds, so we'll be using the C3, C2 and C1 compounds. Remember, there are 5 different Cs. The higher the C, the softer the tire is, so the hardest tires we'll be using for this track. The track that is 2.894 miles long or 4.657 kilometers. We had a rework this season. So as you can probably see all the way at the end, the chicane has been taken out. Now we just have a full running there, just like the circuit was about 20 years ago. And I think that is a great rework for us to see. Distance from the grid to turn 1, only 579 meters. Decent length, so we could see some overtakings go for the race before our first turn has been completed. Another important facts, the pit lane time loss, 21.8 seconds, 2 DRS zones, detection before turn 9, with the zone being from turn 9 to turn 10, so at the back of the circuit, as you can see, the green zone, and the other detection before turn 14, before the final corner, and we have the DRS, the second DRS on the long start-finish straight. Lap record then, held by Max Verstappen, a 1:16.330, of course set this year because the times previously to this are not important, and the most race wins here ever, at least in the real world, go to both Schumacher and Hamilton with 6 wins to their name, but a previous winner that we should not take out the equation either is one of our drivers here tonight. Rachman32 has won a race here before, so we know that he can be quite strong at this track. Now, in the meantime, let's go over to our standings here. You can see our drivers. We had a few changes with Chiquet stepping in to the McLaren. I noticed that I still have the tier lineup from P2, which is what I casted last time around. So let me just change that on the go so you can see the correct info. It was Sharky, I believe, who has dropped out, so it's replaced by Chiquace. But what is important for you to know is, of course, the championship standings. Leading the standings is Funky with 155 points, a 56-point lead over Nick. He is second with 99 points. Last race out, Funky only able to score 6 points, but he took an engine penalty last race. And this time around, it'll be Nick taking that engine penalty together with 2 other drivers, but I'll get into that in a moment. Third in the standings, Rachman, who has been pipped to that due to not participating in Belgium. And fourth, we find Ghost with 84 points. His second place definitely getting him a lot closer to that fight for P2 in the standings. And Giggle with a P3, finding himself in fifth with 71 points. And then rounding off the top 10 are Truth, Fozzie Bear, Jamie, Matthias, and finally Jess with 44 points in P10. Those are your standings, and for the manufacturers, it can be no other than the MoneyGram Haas F1 team, leading that with 200 points to their name. Second place, the Aston Martin team with 155, McLaren slotting in third with 145 points. But looks like for both the Haas drivers, especially Funky, are making the most out of that. And in the meantime, I'll be quickly checking back in because our drivers are very soon going to be readying up. So in the meantime, I will go for a quick word from our sponsors before we're going to move to some more information about the track and, of course, the qualifying session for tonight. For this season of One Up Racing, we have a £2,500 prize pool, which, as you can see, for the Drivers' Championship, the winner of the Drivers' Championship will get a £50 voucher for either PS or Amazon, and the rest of the top 5 will all get a free entry into the next season. Same goes for the Constructor winners. They will both get a free entry into the next season. Then, NLR sponsoring this awesome rig, the FGT Elite Light Cockpit and the Elite ES1 Sim Racing seat to one of the winners from our tiers. So either the winner of P3, 2 or 1 tier will get this. Same for the second and third place. They have a chance for the GT Light Cockpit and the ERS2 Racing seat. So second or third from all of the tiers. So 6 drivers in total, and one of those will get this wonderful rig. And then for all drivers that participate in at least 10 races during this season will be in a chance to win a NLR Wheel Stand 2.0. Furthermore, also sponsored by Aztec, showing these wonderful boots and giving these wonderful boots to the shortest combined qualifying time, as well as Pure Sim Gear, who is going to give either these gloves or socks to the driver with the most fastest laps and poles combined, for which I think Funky might make a fair bid. Then we have a mystery sim box with a mystery shirt box to the winner of our drivers rankings, and I believe that also Funky and Nick and Rachman are currently in the top 10, so they are looking to be within reach of winning that shirt box. Furthermore, Vespertine, ERT, of course, with the ERT Going Get Stuff Award, for which, if you attend all races, finish outside the top 3, complete all pre- and post-race interviews, you will be in a chance to win that t-shirt you saw on the previous slide. And then finally, also sponsored by SimGrid and the Mental Health Foundation. That is all the information that you need to know for tonight. In the meantime, I'm going to switch back on in-game, but again, we are not fully started yet. So we will have some time to go through our pre-race and post-race interviews from last time out. But first, let's take a look at the weekly rankings. Because at the moment we find Funky in there in P2, Nick is in P6, Rachman P9, and Ghost also P10. So 4 of our P3 drivers in the top 10 standings. Funky about 2 points behind Timo Geurts, who I believe is driving in P1, but do not quote me on that one. It's at least good to see Funky in there. And Nick, not too far away from Oshin, who is in P5, so Nick can definitely make a jump in these standings as well. Now for our pre-race interviews, let's scroll down a little bit and see what we can find about here in Spain. What always hurts me a little bit is that I cannot fully see the names in Discord, so I can't get the best information for you. But here we go, the interview from Ghost. Ghost mentions he's not done many league races around the track, so he's hoping that he can practice a little bit tomorrow, that being today. And he says it's not one of his best tracks, but with good strategy, might be able to get a good result. He's hoping for a dry race, and he said that with 4 races left, he started poor. The last few races had some good results, and indeed we see him moving up to the standings now in P4. The last 2 races being a P3 and P2, so definitely a good result. He says for the best position in your respective tiers to win the title, he says title chance is almost gone. We'll keep fighting for the best finish possible in the championship, so that is what he is looking out for. Again, a quick peek at the in-game view. Nothing happening yet, so we can continue with our pre-race interviews. And we have another for Fozzie Bear, who says, I really like Spain. The circuit has a very nice flow. We find Fozzie Bear 7th in the standings, and he placed 4th last time out. So hopefully we can see a podium classification for him. Hasn't driven too many laps here yet, so without the without the chicane at the end, he's not sure how that will impact for him. For him, also doesn't matter too much whether we'll be having a dry or a wet race. And so far, reflecting on the season, he is not too happy about that. He mentioned that he is not consistent enough for the time being, but we can see a couple of podium places. Actually 1 podium place, but we have 3 times a 4th place classification, so definitely able to get some good results there. And then Funky, our championship leader, he said it was pretty good heading into round 9. Had a few days of work, so I'm well rested and ready. And he says that Spain's always a hit or miss for me, so we'll have to see. Remember, if he takes enough points tonight, he could very well clinch the title. But if I do calculations real quick, the total amount of points that are still up for grabs are, let's see, 72. After this race would be 75 points. So if he is able to increase his lead by 19 points tonight, he will be the winner of P3 tier in season 23. And tonight there are 32 points up for grabs, so it's definitely not impossible. But Nick will definitely make sure to keep the heat on. Of course, Rageman also still within reach of the standings, but a little bit more difficult for him. And I think looking at the points as they are, I think it's more realistic that we'll see the championship being decided next week, or rather the week after. But I think next week is more realistic. Funky does hope that the race is going to be dry. And yeah, of course, very happy with his own performance. And he's hoping to win the title, but he says, I'll need to keep my head down for the final races to keep my lead. And then finally, Ols, before we dive into the other information, not feeling so great going into the Spain track. Doesn't make a difference for him whether it's going to be a dry or a wet race. And he seems to be on track with his results for the time being. But is not too interested in who is going to win the title. Fortunately for him, he's without reach of the title, finding himself in P15 with 20 points to his name. In the meantime, we are in the game, so I can get the correct overlay in, but the hotkey is always a bit of an issue for me, so I will have to click it manually. And then we'll be able to see what is all happening here. Going to switch in for you now. And there we have our looks. We're going to enable our telemetry data so we can see one of the Alpha Tauris, I believe, leaving the pit straight. 16 drivers that we have tonight. So the Aston Martins of Ghost and Giggle. We have one Williams driver, which is Jess. We find Caden in the Alpine. Odok Shelby in the Aston Martin together with Giacomundo. Odok Shelby the first one to leave the pits, so we are going to go over to him so we can have a view from his car. The 2 Mercedes drivers, Ols and Jamie, Red Bull drivers of Chiquays and Truth. We find both of our Haas drivers, so Funky and Matthias. Also, both of the McLaren drivers of Fozzie Bear and Breichman. One of the AlphaTauris, who is John Mason. And then the last driver we did not mention yet is our second runner in the championship, which is Nick, the sole Ferrari driver for tonight. So 16 drivers. Remember, this qualification will determine who is going to get the pole position for our sprint race, and then the grid for the end grid of the sprint race is going to determine the grid for our main race. And we see Odok Shelby immediately going in. No, almost overshooting there. That was close. Immediately giving us a scare. A little bit of a scare. But it gives us some time to go over to Truth. Let's go on board with him and see if he is going to go for a run. He is indeed going for a run. Going a little bit careful through that last corner, but is going to start his first flying lap. Now we are in. And he's going to head into turn 1, the Elf corner, as it's called. A lot of corners here are either named after brands or petrol even. So with Elf now going through Renault turn 3 as we head into Repsol, which is our 4th corner. Repsol, of course, company you see a lot out there in Spain. Coming out of that corner, going into SEAT, the Spanish car manufacturer. And then making our way to the left-right chicane, also known as Worth, which we will find at more tracks, this corner name. Of course, named after a company as well. Now going through Camsa, very fast right-hander, probably one of the most beautiful corners of this Barcelona track. Now heading into one of the newer sections. This was renovated in 2020, called La Caixa, before we go into Banc Sabadell, another fast right-hander, which you take in 3rd or 4th gear. Truth definitely keeping that high. Now going through Europe car, and then our final corner here, New Holland, rounds off the track. 14 turns. Turn 13 has been remade, and our first lap here completed in a 1:13.232 for Truth. Good run for him. A nice onboard lap that we've had with him. As we now try to jump on board with Ghost, as we see John going for the fastest lap with a 1:13.0. So I think we'll be diving into the 1:12s here tonight. Let's see how fast Ghost is going so far, as Doc Shelby has retired from the session now. I believe he was also one of the drivers that is not going to participate because of the engine penalty. I believe that was Odok Shelby, Nick, and I'll have to check for you real quick so I can give you that information. As in the meantime, we watch Ghost go through turn 14, our final corner, and set his first lap time, although it has been invalidated, so his 1:12.3 will not stand. But that shows that our drivers can definitely go a lot quicker than we have currently seen them do. Yeah, for tonight, so Nick, Odok Shelby, and our last race winner, Hookie, have taken engine penalties, so we will see them in the session. Actually, no sign of Hookie. But that means they will do their run to just get their setup in, but will not complete any qualifying laps. They're not allowed to do so. They'll have to start from the back of the grid. This is something that every driver has to do at least once this season, so don't get scared if you see that happening. It's all fair. It's all following the rules, as Odok Shelby has done. Nick has gone back into the pits. He has done his reconnaissance lap, so that is all good and smooth sailing for him. As in the meantime, Matthias out of nowhere has picked up our provisional pole with a 1:12.4, as we have been focused on Ghost. And I think in the meantime it is good if we go to our championship leader, who is not looking to leave the pits for now. The first driver that is going to be on a fast lap now will be Fozzie Bear, closely followed by Jamie. So we'll try and see what these drivers can do out here on the track. Now, of course, the Barcelona track is the more famous track that we know of here in Spain, but there's another track where we've seen quite some action in the past. Unfortunately, not here on One Up Racing, but we do not want to count out the track of Jerez, where we've seen a lot of testing being done until it was moved here to Barcelona because of the favorable weather conditions. Although we have seen a few years ago, even in Barcelona, it can snow in February, so do not count that out either. But yeah, the Jerez track, of course, who does not remember it? Three-way pole position with the same lap times and the championship decider, I believe in 97, where I think it was Villeneuve taking his maiden and sole title of his Formula 1 career. But let's now get back into the action with Fozzie Bear as we have the nice back of the helmet cam as he starts his first flying lap on the soft compounds. It looks like he has a all clean track. Nobody is going to be hindering him in this session. We see Hookie joining the session real quick, but as I mentioned, that will be just for setup purposes. He will not actually drive a lap time, so only 14 drivers competing for that pole position. Sector 1, 22.0. Fairly strong start for Fozzie Bear, but so we have not kept a close eye on the times. I cannot tell you whether he's going to be quicker or not. We did see purple lightings, so he might be the quickest car on track. We're going to see in about 45 seconds from now what that is going to be. Going through turn 9, Kamsa, very fast right-hander. It's one of those corners you take in 6th or 7th gear, and another purple sector appearing for Fozzie Bear. Is that just personal best, or is he really going that quickly down the track? We're going to find out in about 10 seconds from now. The final 2 corners coming up for Fozzie Bear, taking a lot of speed through. The last corner, you want to take it almost flat out, and that is what Fozzie Bear does. A good line there, but does fall quite short, so it was only the fast laps for him, purple sector for him, with a 1:13.2 being quite shy of the fast laps, and Jamie just slotting him quicker than him, as I believe we had another driver on their fast lap, but they have gone in once again. Which means we should have a look at Giggle, who has also started his first flyer. We saw Jamie momentarily step out of the track to make way for, I believe that is one of the Alpha Tauris. But that could not have been Hookie. That must have been John Mason, who's going for his second flyer. Giggle now. Heading into turn 7. We see more and more yellow flags appear, but that doesn't matter too much. But it looks like the Alpha Tauri behind him is gaining a little bit on him. So it looks like John really is on a massive flyer there. Let's see what the second sector time is going to be. It's a 51.3. A little bit wide there. So far it doesn't look like the best sorts of laps that we've had from Giggle, as he is likely going to fall a little bit short of that current provisional pole lap time. Does get fairly close though. He gets to a 1:13.1, and it's John indeed with the fastest lap. We saw that he was quicker on track, and he indeed is, a 1:12.459. Currently our provisional pole, with Gold slotting in not too far behind. Also a very, very fast lap from him. So let's go to our championship leader on a quick run. Provisional pole for Funky, 1:12.250. Shaving off another 2/10 of that lap from John Mason. Remember, this was just his first lap, so it shows how much pace he has in that car. As we also have Giacomundo start his second flyer. Really still waiting for Jess, Caden, Ols, and Rachman to do their qualifying laps. Rachman definitely will have to end up high. He wants to keep, well, his title hopes alive, but more realistically fight for P2 in the standings. As Giacomundo now goes 2/10 quicker than his previous lap. Pretty good first sector coming out from him. Now diving into Seat turn 5. And making his way round the crown that you could call this track. It's a very nice track if you see it from Skyview or even in a track map. Now heading towards the end of Sector 2, currently finds himself with a 51.1, so he's a bit quicker than Gigo. Actually 6/10 up on his own lap time, so currently going for, well, somewhere in the mid 12, so 12.5, 12.6. That's going to put him very, very close to a top 3 classification. But how much time can he make up in that final corner? Giacomundo comes across the line with a 1:12.550. So that's a P5 for him. A good qualifying run that he has been able to put in. As we now follow Chiquez, who seems to have made a little bit of a mistake. So he's moving out of the way for Matthias. But Matthias was not on a quick run, so there has not been any impeding. But we're going to follow Matthias now for a little bit, as he is going to start his second run in a moment's notice. Just as how important it is for commentators to stay hydrated. Make sure you drivers do that out there as well. Have a little bit of a drink when you get in there. And Matthias picking up some track limits there, going out on turn 14. Does that been Austria? His lap now would have been invalidated. Thankfully does not happen for him, but I think it rather hampers his performance going into this run instead of benefiting from it, as he's wearing that beautiful Carlos Sainz tribute helmet in that Haas cockpit. Currently half a 10 quicker than his fastest lap. So he's on schedule to at least come an inch closer to that lap time that Funky was able to set earlier on. We've now entered our final 6 minutes of our qualifying, as we now have a couple drivers on track. So Chiquez is still on track and Ghost is on his out lap. Not sure if Chiquez is on a fast lap, but let's first see what can Matthias do in the second sector. He's about a 10th quicker now, so he's definitely going for a pretty good run. Chiquez also slightly quicker, but will have to pick up about half a second if he really wants to make any jump in the standings for now, as he finds himself in P6. Matthias now coming around the final corner, going flat out. This is really what you want to see here. But how much time can he gain with that? He does come quite close. A 1:12.350, so exactly 1/10 slower. We currently have a front row lockout for the Haas team, for the Haas crew. And that is some great performance that we are seeing here. Chiquez then has been able to actually improve his lap time by 4/10, so does come quite a bit quicker to the cars up in front of him. He's now invalidated his next lap, but that doesn't matter too much. In the meantime, let's go on board with Ghost, who's about to start his third lap, a likely final lap of the day. Still has 4.5 minutes remaining though, so might have a bit of extra time to go out on a used set of soft tires. If he wants to get another lap on the board, does have the time for it, but let's first see how well he can do this time out. He's looking for an improvement of 3/10 to pick up provisional pole. But he's currently 29,000 slower in the first sector. But remember, most time to be gained in sector 2. This is the important sector, the tricky technical sector that we have here, especially this little chicane, so the 7-8 combination, quite hard to do, and also the quick right-hander. Looks like an easy corner, but you do have to take it quite well in order to not lose any time there. And indeed, we see Ghost is quite a bit quicker. Picks up 1/10 so far. But yeah, that 1/10 is enough to make a jump of 1 position at least here. Now coming through the final 2 corners. It's not being held back. Let's get the in-game view of that final corner. Does lift momentarily. Is not daring to take it flat out, but actually picks up a massive amount of time in the final sector. Provisional pole for Ghost. What a massive last sector that was. Very nice job by him. And now I really wonder, does he want to go for another run, or does he think this is enough? Because that was quite a banger. And oh, John is on a flyer. 3/10 up on his own lap. Has a purple second sector. We're gonna see some quick laps now, folks. These drivers are all battling for pole position. This is one of the closest fights we've seen for pole in quite some time here in the P3. Cow coming down the final bend. Seems to be a little bit slow, but is it enough? It is enough for the time being. 1:12.097. Provisional pole for John. And it looks like the Haas drivers definitely have some more meat to chew. Now let's see what Giacomundo can do. 1/10 quicker in the first sector. That is purple for him. But he will need to pick up another 4/10 if he wants to take that pole position here tonight. But remember, we saw that the drivers can take quite some chunks out of their own lap time in Sector 2, but also Sector 3, surprisingly. And given the fact it's only really 4 corners that you're having there, of which 2 are pretty much flat out. So, hey. But that does not matter. Another good sector for Giacomundo is about 3/10 slower than Jean was here, so I don't think he'll be getting too close to that pole lap time, but with him having depleted his energy systems, will have to stay out if he has enough fuel for it. He's not running in the reds, So he might go for a second run, so a cooldown run and another quick run. For now, it's a P5 with a 12.3, only 300 slower than Matthias. Now, for the other drivers that are currently out, Rachman is deciding to only go for 1 lap time, and he has invalidated. So he has to recover his systems very quickly, or he is going to have a big problem. We'll have to let one of the Haas's by. I'm not sure if that is Funky indeed. So let's have our eyes on Funky for the time being, because I don't think the... No, Ols has also started his fast lap. So let's first jump to Ols, because he has not got any camera action here yet. So he will also go for 1 run and 1 run alone. So I'll have to make sure that he does not pick up any track limits tonight, but is saving some tires for later on tonight. 22.1, a couple tenths slower than the front runners out there, but I think it's going to be very hard for him to contest for pole if you're only going to do 1 run out here. Meanwhile, more drivers behind him have started their laps, so we can go and switch by and see what they are going to be doing so far. But we'll be following Ols all the way to the end of his lap before we're going to be moving over to Funky, and then we can see how much quicker he is on his current lap. Actually 51.9, so 1.1 seconds slower than John Mason, so I think we're going to be going for a 13.2 to 13.3, so around place 8 and 10 that we're going to see him. Let's hope he does not lose too much time here in the final sector, and he is going to lose actually a little bit, of 14.0, so not the best run for him, but in the meantime we will have to switch quickly to Funky, who has a 10th down on his own lap, but will it be enough? Can he still get that pole position? Can he snatch it away here? He does! He gets provisional pole, 12.0, a massive final sector, as we have Jamie coming across the line, and now it's going to go quick. We first have Jess coming around for her 1 and only lap, putting her in P9. Then we have Giggle, I believe. No, Giggle is still a little bit further back. It's actually, well, Goals has not gone for a lap. Matthias is still on there as well. Chiquez is still doing a lap, but he's a bit slower. Matthias is, well, was quicker, but Matthias has dropped his lap. So Chiquez 3 10s down. Giggle now going to be coming across the line. Does make up a few positions there, but it looks like nothing much will be changing more up front, as Chiquez is going to be coming across the line, does not go any quicker. So we have our standings: pole position for championship leader Funky, 2nd place for John, great classification for him. Ghost coming out in P3, currently sits P4 in the standings. A 4th place for Matthias, and then we find Giacomundo, Chiquez, Jamie, Giggle, Truth, and Fuzzy Bear. A bit of a disappointing result for Rachman, only doing P11, and he will have to make up a bit of points if he wants to stay within reach of Nick, who of course has taken that engine penalty, because this is his chance to leapfrog Nick in the standings. But then again, if he does, we'll have to see that he gets enough points so that Funky doesn't become the championship leader tonight. Now all of our drivers have taken the checkered flag, so we have our results clear, as we see that Jess has placed in P12, so we are on board with her. And we're now going to go to our standings for tonight. I already mentioned them for you. So Funky on pole, no front row lockout for Haas, but both Haas drivers on rows 1 and 2. John coming in 2nd, and Ghost rounding off that top 3 in his Aston Martin. And then further down the order, we didn't mention yet, so Rachman, Jess, Ols, and then we have Hookie, Caden. Caden actually hasn't done a lap, not sure if that's because of an engine penalty too, because that was not listed there for me. But Nick, Odok, Shelby, and Hookie have taken their engine penalties, so I can only assume that a late penalty was applied for by Caden. Now we're going to be moving on to our first race of tonight. A fairly short race here, as we have our sprint race. Remember, for this week out, we have no more formation laps, so we're going to see our start straight off the bat. Same as for the main race. Currently are some glitches and issues I believe we had those in Belgium as well, where we could see them well in action. So I think it's only a fair decision by the stewards to not move along with that and just go for a standing start. It looks a little bit dark out there for me, but there's no rain whatsoever, and I think it is going to stay that way then for the remainder of the race. Remember, sprint race, very short race. I'll have to see how many laps exactly it's going to be. Normally, I think it was about 8 or 9 laps that we've seen before. But as soon as we have our drivers in, we are going to get a good view of that. In the meantime, I'll have a quick jug of my drink, and then we'll be ready to commentate the sprint race. Still waiting for the players here, but the loading does take some time out there. In the meantime, though, I think this is a perfect moment to ask everyone in the chat, who do you think is going to take the sprint win? Is it going to be our championship leader, or is Goals going to continue his great performance and go all the way from P3 to the win of this sprint race? Or we're going to see a great race and a great start by John. Starting in P2, we have 5 lights on. And we are away, and indeed looks like a very good start for John, but is it enough to leapfrog Funky? No, it is Funky definitely picking up more pace at the second stint of the almost 600 meter dash towards T1. As we see Shaquays making up quite a few positions there, now finding himself in P3 already. Let's make sure that we have our information here because we want to see the position changes. Indeed, 3 positions gained by Shaquays, and we have yellow in Sector 1. That is Ols, who seems to be, well, he seems to have spun, but does he have any front wing damage? Let's have a look at his car. This is going to come around this bend. No, his front wing end plates are both still on, so it seems to be just a spin, though I'm not sure what the impact was. But look at that, Funky immediately flying off the mark, already gaining 1.8 seconds onto John in P2, as we now see Goals dropping a few positions there. But just overtaken there because the field is oh so close coming out from P4 here. We find Giacomundo now in 4th place as Goals dropped a few positions. But look at Rachman. He's picked up 4 positions in the opening lap. With Shelby and Nick. Well, Nick also momentarily, but now lost 1 position to Jess. And with all the drivers coming around the first lap here, we see another of the Mercedes drivers driving slowly, and actually 2 drivers coming in for a pit stop. So Jamie driving a little bit slow. Let's see what is going on with him. Seems to be driving fast enough again, and no damage for him either. But a first lap stop for Fuzzy Bear. He had to replace his front wing. And Nick now coming out of his pit stop. He has got the, I guess, soft tires. Let's actually get some information on the tires. Indeed, are fresh soft tires. So only 2 drivers on the track are on the mediums, starting on the mediums. Those are Aston Martin drivers, so that does explain a little bit why Goals has dropped a couple of positions. But let's go to the main fights out there because there's quite a tussle going on for P3 there. Shaquays currently leading that pack, with Giacomundo, Matthias, and Goals being hot on their tails as Shelby picks up P9 from Truth. Also P9, P8 for P8 even, with Truth, Shelby, Jess, and Caden being also close to one another as Funky. No, it's actually Mason, John, who sets the fastest lap time, a 10th quicker than Funky. But Funky has a healthy lead already of 1.9 seconds as we see Giacomundo slot into P3. Shaquays staying on the outside and keeping his position there. Does push Giacomundo a little bit wide. Almost contact there with the Haas drivers and through in the inside. Goals. Can he make that move stick? We'll have to go for 2, but I think it's safer to just settle for 1. And he has taken over the spot from Matthias, going for a Hamilton-esque move there. And he only makes 1 position stick. But still important to gain some early positions here in this race. Only 8 laps that we have there. So, yeah, Nick and Fuzzy Bear must have gone for a pit stop because of damage. But that also means that Nick and Fuzzy Bear will not be picking up any points because there are no points for fastest lap. But there are 12 points to be gained in total, so you have to finish in the top 12 if you want to pick up any points. And yeah, Ghost and Giggle expecting that the softs are going to have such degradation that is not going to make them last. But we're now going to go on board with Jackamundo. We're going to go into our second DRS zone. A little bit of a wider line by Chiquez, but is it enough to get a good exit? Already going for a defensive move down into turn 1, seemingly using some of his systems to keep Jackamundo at bay. Jackamundo's having a look there, but he's not gonna commit and make a full send there. But behind him, a couple drivers really close. So Ghost and Matthias hot on Jackamundo's tail, trying to have a little bit of a cheeky look there, but not going for a move yet. As we go back to Giggle, who's dropped back significantly, almost 4 seconds behind Rachman. So for now, at least looks like the medium tire not the best option. As we see Truth and the Doc Shelby still fighting for P9. Giggle seemingly holding up his nearest competitors a little bit. Most of them also using quite a bit of their ERS already. So Giggle will not have to worry about that too much. But there we go. First DRS zone is already using his overtake to try and defend. And indeed, the Red Bull driver will not be going for a send there. Soft tires are still holding out there. But seemingly braked a little. Slight mistake there. It's actually Truth who's struggling a lot there with his car. So now Giggle seems to be in a more safe position. But Truth will have to watch out that he doesn't get overtaken. And the same goes for Doc Shelby and Caden, because Caden is now mounting an attack on the Doc Shelby. Gonna go down the inside of him. But can he make it stick? No, it's an outbreak by Doc Shelby, so good move by him. As we see Jackamundo and Matthias fighting, and Rachman's gonna have the better of it. He sends his car down the inside, a McLaren driver into P6. A great sprint race for him so far. I believe he started in P12 tonight. At P11 he started tonight, and he's now made his way all the way up to P6 with potentially one more position to be gained for him. So great race for him. Let's see if he can make that stick. But so far, the biggest winner of tonight is the Doc Shelby, as we see Rachman come by Jackamundo, who's made a little bit of a mistake coming out of Kamsa, turn 9. And that is going to hand him his 6th position gained. We're still on board here with Rachman, but we see Matthias actually dropping down the order. And we have a yellow in sector 3. I think that is a spin. Matthias actually comes in, so he's had some issue, but we had Caden go for a spin. Car still seemingly okay. It's not going to come in, so we'll be continuing for the remainder of the race. But some more gaps are emerging, and this is going to give Oz an opportunity to go for the overtake onto Caden. And with this massive speed difference, he is going to make that move stick. Caden being sent back to P15, but a healthy gap over Nick and Fozzie, who have both made pit stops. Meanwhile, further up the field, it looks like Ghost is trying to contest John for P2. Remember, now we're entering the later phase of this sprint race, which means that the medium runners could have a bit of an advantage here. We see that Truth's gap to Jackamundo has gone down, but that's also because Jackamundo has made some mistakes. As we see another yellow, that is Jackamundo indeed. He's dropped even further. A spin from him. Looks like his soft tires are done, and he's still driving a little bit slower. But let's now go on board with Ghost, because he wants to go for the overtake onto John. Has a much better exit out of New Holland turn 14, and they're now side by side going across the start-finish line. 2 laps remaining still. We see Funky disappearing in the distance, but with Ghost on the inside line, he is going to make that move stick and fight himself up into P2. So a good sprint race for him in so far with 1 position gained. But I think the driver that can be the happiest here is Rachman, and a disaster for Jackamundo, who after his 2 mistakes, a spin, has now also picked up a 5-second time penalty for heading into the pit. So his race quite ruined. A good classification, at least in the qualifying, now ruined in the sprint race. So we'll have to make quite a comeback in the main race that we're going to see in a moment's notice. Ghost as in the meantime gotten quite a bit of a gap over John, so does not have to look at his rear view mirrors. John, however, does have to look at his rear view mirrors because Shaquace is getting a little bit closer to him. But we want to now zone in on the fight for P7, where Truth is under pressure by Jess. Let's go on board with Jess, who's taking some different lines to try and get closer to the Red Bull driver. Does not get the best sort of exit down to turn 14. And is not using her systems to go for an overtake. I remember this is the final lap. Now at the end she's using her systems. Can she go around the outside here in turn 1 and turn 2? She's still making it work. She still has the Red Bull driver on her inside. And side by side they go almost 3 men wide now. But Jazz will have to concede the position again to Truth. She tries to go for yet another different line. This might be the way to make it work. Now she can send it down the inside of turn. No, she's not going to send it down the inside of turn 5. But does not have a lot of time left to try and make an overtake here. As in the meantime, Shaquace is getting closer to John. Does pick up some track limits there, but has to make a lot of risk work if he wants to still pick up a podium place here in the sprint race. Goes very, very wide as he sees the Red Bull try and cross back from behind. But it is not enough. His stars are pretty much done. No, it's actually Shaquace who does stay up in front. And we see... No, it's Rageman! Rageman has spun! Rageman has spun! One of our championship contenders not picking up any points. Funky wins the race, goes in P2. Then Shaquace and John Giggle coming out in P5 because of that mistake. Then we have Truth, Jazz, the dog, Shelby, but Rageman is going to be coming across in P9. What a disastrous end to his race. And with him and Nick not picking up any points, this already gives Funky 12 of the... I believe it was 17 points that he needed. No, 19 points that he needed. So already has 12 of the 19 points. Remember, in the main race that we're going to see in a moment, Funky needs to pick up at least 7 more points over that would be Nick in order to take the title. So realistically, we could see the championship decided tonight. If it doesn't get decided tonight, then it could be awfully close as we head into the race in Singapore next week. But a great performance by Funky, not making any mistakes there, and oh, poor Rageman. He still goes by the name of #Bottleman32 for life on Discord, and unfortunately lives up to his name here tonight. But for the results then, we have to go to the results of the sprint, which we have here. The win for Funky, second place goes Shaquace, John Mason, Giggle, Truth, Jess, Doc, Shelby, Rageman, and Jamie rounding off the top 10, and the point scorers rounded off by Matthias and Ols in P12. And then we find Hooky, P13, and this is not the one that I wanted, so one back. So Hooky, Caden, Nick, Fuzzy Bear, and Giacomo, unfortunately without points here in this race. Now we're going to get ready for our main race, but this could be an important one. And we'll have to keep a close eye on Nick, because he will need to score at least, let's see, we said 7 more points. So we'll need to score at least, well, if Funky wins it, we'll need to score at least 13 points tonight. Otherwise, the championship is going to be decided. And if we look at the points that can be gained. So just to give you another update of that, if we indeed see Funky win the race, then we find Funky with 12 points, meaning that at least a 3rd place is needed for Nick in order to at least prolong the championship celebrations by 1 race for Funky. But yeah, this sprint race could not have gone better for him. 12 points to his own name, and no points to his 2 direct competitors, which I believe also puts Rageman out of contention for the championship already. So we're now waiting for our drivers to line up for the main race tonight. Also fastest lap points to be gained, so yeah, a 3rd place definitely going to be needed for Nick here tonight. If he doesn't do that, and, as I said before, Funky wins it, we will have a decider here tonight as we see the lights come on with 4 and 5 lights are on. And away we are with, again, a good start from the inside seemingly, but again, it is going to be Funky who is going to be keeping that. Most of our drivers are on the soft tires, 2 drivers on the hard runners. One of those is Shaquaze, who narrowly avoids contact with Ghost there in turn 1. We see a little bit of tussling for positions there. Nick made up 7 positions! What is that? What a massive start by Nick, and this is what he needed. He needed to make up a lot of positions because he needs to end well here in this race. But this is one of the craziest starts I've ever seen a driver do, and he's not done yet. He is not done yet with his 1 lap wonder, with his first lap wonder, made up 8 positions now. Let's go on board with him. Can he make up even more positions? Trying to warm up his tires a little bit more as he's already behind driver 3 in the standings. That is Rachman, also made up 3 positions. Keeping a very close line there. He really knows how to drive lines here on the Catalunya circuit. So it looks like we could expect more from Nick, who I believe also had the fastest lap in the sprint race, but fortunately was not awarded any points for that. He is going to end out his first lap in P7, so 8 positions gained for a great start for him. Other notable drivers here in the opening laps are Rachman picking up 3, Caden picking up 3, but also Giggle going from P5 to P3. Let's now go on board with Shaquaze, who is desperately close to Giggle. Shaquaze, of course, on the hard compound tires, so he'll be struggling a little bit more. Same goes for Giacomundo, but not having too much issues with it. Although he's having to defend against his teammate, and his teammate has come through down the inside of turn 5, Seiya. In the meantime, we see Nick also getting closer to Rachman. Gap now half a second as he's trying to improve and gain more and more positions. But remember, tonight there's 2 mandatory pit stops in this 23-lap race. So I think what Shaquaze is doing is trying to go for a hard, soft run. As the other drivers will likely go for soft, medium, soft, or soft, medium, medium, depending on how long they can make those tires last. But seeing then the sprint race, they could make them last for about 7 or 8 laps. I think a soft, medium, soft is on the cards if you have the tires for that. In the meantime, Ghost comes awfully close to Funky. Funky having a little bit more trouble now with the drivers behind him. Sprint race seemingly easy for him, winning with a 4-second gap, 4-second lead. But looks like with Ghost, it's going to be a bit more difficult for him. Might be feeling the pressure now, knowing that the championship is also close for him. And Ghost definitely trying to make it count here. Rachman in the meantime picked up another position, finds himself in P5, overtaking Shaquaze, but Shaquaze and Rachman are fighting for that P5, and then it's drawing Nick closer and closer. As a matter of fact, it's got Nick by. Nick finds himself, almost contact there. So we have the Red Bull on the outside, both drivers with the DRS, but our soft runners could break a little bit later, and indeed Nick will be hanging on to that position and finding himself into P6, but falling outside of the DRS range if he doesn't act quick. But is using his ERS systems as needed, so he stays within DRS range and doesn't at least lose track of Rachman in front of him. We see John trying to go around the inside of Shaquaze, but of course he also has DRS, but we have a bit of a DRS train going on behind there. A lot of drivers being also close to each other. DRS ranging from, well, Rachman's position, so P5 all the way down to P14. So a lot of drivers within reach of that DRS, as Ghost is now so close to Funky. He's actually trying to go for it down the inside now of turn 5. Cannot make it stick yet as they go into our left-hander. Getting ready for turn 9 comes, and this is where the DRS zone starts. Funky definitely struggling a little bit more, but this is enough for Ghost to make the move. He's having a look down the inside, but knows that he should not make the move yet. make the move on the start-finish straight. Although Nick already making the move a little bit sooner. He's overtaken Rachman, and John has gone the position onto Shaquace, who's actually taken it back already, and now has been reverted again. But can Ghost now go for the lead? A wider line by Funky. We saw other drivers do this earlier on as well. DRS has been activated. Gets closer, gets close. This should be the move for P1. This is going to be the move for P1. And the lead of the race goes out to Ghost, who is going to help out Nick a little bit here in his bit to stay alive in the championship. Because if Funky does not win the race, he's going to be struggling a little bit more to pick up enough points, as we have a virtual safety car. As I believe it is it Jazz or Caden? I think it's Caden who's made a mistake there. We need to see him drop a little bit. And with a virtual safety car out now, the question is how long will this stay? Because for the soft runners, this is not a bad moment to go for your pit stop. Take a pit stop now, lose less than the 21.8, I think it was, Delta pit lane loss time. Fuzzy Bear actually not going for his pit stop, but he's made one already, presumably, seeing that he's 37 seconds behind. And the race has restarted, and Doc Shelby finds himself with a drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car. Very unfortunate for him. In the meantime, we see Funky hot on Ghost's tail. He wants to get that position back, taking a lot of speed down that final corner. And we see Ghost already defending. He knows that he is under pressure. And Funky's going to try and make that move work. Has the overspeed here and makes a safe move into turn 1. As we see the first pit stop sequence starting with the Doc Shelby, Jess, Shaquace, John and Matthias going for their first pit stops of this race. As in the back, we also find that Ghost is still staying close to Funky, and them two, I think, are going to be trying to make out who is going to win the race here tonight, if nothing crazy happens during the pit stop sequence. Let's see what tires the drivers have chosen behind them. So Jess has chosen for the hards, whereas the other drivers, so Shaquace, John and Matthias, have gone for the mediums. And yeah, Doc Shelby still on those 5 level up softs, because he went for that drive-through penalty. So far, the drivers with the stops, yeah, the leader of the stops is Jess, but Jess was currently not leading before she made a pit stop, so virtual leader is still Funky, who will have to watch out for the driver behind him, not going for a stop yet, and it is Ghost who goes in. Now it's going to be an important lap for Funky. How quick is that pit stop going to be for Ghost? Let's go on board with him. He gets a good pit stop here. He could get the overtake onto Funky done when he gets back on track. He's indeed going for mediums. So he's keeping a strategy for soft, medium, soft, or soft, medium, medium alive here. The stop looks quite good. That's quite a fast pit stop as he finds himself back out on track in P8, just behind Hookie. So, good pit by him. They'll have to warm up the stars quickly. So you see Rachman currently behind Nick. Oh, Nick almost spinning out there in Worth. So he'll have to watch out for Rachman. But looks like the gap is still big enough. Let's go on board with Funky, because it's going to be key to see if he is going for the pit stop or not. Is he going for an alternative strategy, or is he going to react to what Ghost is doing? Ghost already picked up the place from Hookie, and indeed Funky decides to make that pit stop happen. Knows that if he wants to win the championship tonight, he has to win the race. So don't take any risks on tactics here. Giggle, Nick and Rachman have followed him in the meantime too, so let's see if we have some more position changes after our first stop sequence. A very fast stop by Funky. Nick also staying ahead of Rachman by the looks of it. And there we have the drivers coming down the start-finish straight. There we see Ghost in the rear view mirror. And it is indeed going to be Funky keeping that lead. So his last lap, his hammer time lap, quick enough to stay ahead of Ghost. and with his tires a little bit fresher than Ghost as well, meaning that he can stay out a little bit longer and have the advantage at the end of the race. Ghost will now have to go for an overtake really quickly if he wants to make anything work in this race here tonight. As we see Hookie and Giggle having a little bit of a tussle for P4, but that means that Giggle has done quite well in this pit stop sequence too. Not losing too much time either, as Nick has come out behind Truth. Has Truth made a pit stop already? Truth has indeed made a pit stop already, so Truth has gone ahead of Nick, who now finds himself in a P5 for the time being, as Nick now overtakes Hookie, and so does Rageman. But looks like Ghost is not able to get that much closer to Funky. Is still going to get his DRS here, so that is going to make it easier for him. Caden is still staying out on his soft tires. He's had the... oh, a little bit of a look inside by Ghost. It didn't look like he could even get there with the 7-8-10s he was behind. But he's showing Funky, look at that, I'm here, better watch out for me. And that could push Funky into some problems, or perhaps push him into a mistake later down the order, as he likely knows how important this race is for him, and if he doesn't do his calculations, then could be quite surprised after the race tonight. As it stands, if nothing changes with the results that we have now currently, even when Caden makes his pit stop, then we will have a new championship winner in the name of Funky. And of course, still a bit early to call, with 14 laps to go, as we are now going to go on board with Giggle, because he is suddenly coming under pressure from Truth, Nick, and Rageman. All the drivers on the mediums, only Truth tires are a little bit older than them. Truth is under a lot more pressure by Nick. Let's go on board with Nick. He's using all of his overtake already, so he does not have much left, but it looks to be enough to go for a move down the inside of turn 1. Can he get the Red Bull driver here? He does make the move work. Actually pushes the Red Bull driver a little bit wide, and now Truth immediately under pressure by Rageman, but is keeping his car in front of Rageman. But can he make that work? Rageman going for the switchback. A Rageman now on the inside. What a beautiful move into P5. Great work by him. Rageman P5, and Nick finds himself in P4. Getting closer and closer to that position where he needs to end at the moment. In P4 would be enough for him to pick up a nice amount of Discord loads. A nice amount of 12 points. But with 12 points, we'll need to pick up fastest lap. And then, well, no, that's not enough for him. Nick needs to pick up another position, needs to overtake Giggle in order to keep his championship hopes alive. But he's already getting very close to Giggle, and I think he wants to make the move get it done here in lap 11. Funky has already come across the line. Ghost is very close to him. Might see it's changed for the lead here, as we do indeed. But we are focused on Nick, who has used all of his ERS. Because Rageman could still have a look down the inside. He does not. And Nick cannot go for the overtake either. Let's go to the front of the field, where we have a new race leader in the name of Ghost. More actioning happening down the back of the field, where Caden just loses 2 positions out to Matthias and the dog Shelby. Ghost still keeping it tight, as now Rageman has gone the overtake down onto Nick. So they're going side by side into turn 7. This is not a corner where you want to go side by side, because there's not enough space. Bit of contact between drivers 2 and 3 in the standings, but no damage, thankfully. This could have been a title eliminating race accident. But thankfully does not happen. No damage and no casualties, so all safe. Rageman is going to set himself up for a run down the start-finish straight. We're entering the halfway mark of the race, as I think Funky is looking to retake the lead here. And he indeed is going to send that Haas down the inside, complete the move there, and make that stick, as Nick now knows that he needs to let Rageman by. Not enough with the DRS that he has. He's actually still going to try and keep it down the inside. There's a bit of contact But is there damage? Is there damage? Crucially, Nick defending very, very hard, but does not have the ERS to do so. Is not making it easy for himself. Really needs to make sure that he ends in a favorable position tonight. Especially with Funky doing so well, but he's under a lot of pressure by Ghost. Let's go on board with the Aston Martin driver as they come down turn 9 Kamsa. First DRS zones usually to closing up the gap to set yourself up for a move down the main straight to come round turn 10. Now into Bank Sabadell, turn 12. 2 turns remaining. Goes off Europe car. And then finally New Holland. The gap, 4.5 seconds. 4.5 tenths, sorry. 4.5 seconds would not be enough to go for the overtake. But with 4 tenths in the final corner, should be a well and done move by Goals. And indeed is going to fly by that Haas and retake the lead of this race. And we're going to see a lot more of these laps as we are entering the final 10 of this race here tonight. Big question also is how long can these mediums last? But I think the drivers are going to go for a soft medium run, as the pace on the mediums seemingly quite good. But Hooky also showing that those softs can last for 11 laps. Also very impressive to see that. But yeah, I think realistically you want to have the softs for about 6 laps. So, well, if you can make the mediums last for 10, then you could go for softs in the end, but of course have to see if the tires, if there are fresh compounds, because you'd likely use a bit more in the qualifying sequences or in the sprint race earlier on. Meantime, we saw momentarily yellow flag in Sector 1. I believe that was caused by Caden, but nothing else happening to it. No safety car, no nothing. So that is all safe. Let's go back on board with Funky, who wants to go for an overtake there. He's a bit further down back than he was before, but knows that he still has enough overtake to make that move stick, but crucially keeping his ERS at a favorable level, 33% for the time being, with Ghost only having 10. So this might make sure that he can make the last lap move, or move into the last lap down to the back straight, because that is when you want to be in the lead. Meantime, Giggle has dropped back quite a bit, and we see Rageman trying to come down the inside, going for a very hard move, but is going to make sure that he stops that McLaren before it plunges into that Aston Martin of Giggle. So all clean on track, all safe there, as Nick currently had to concede a little bit of time, 1.1 second behind these two drivers. Nick, as mentioned many times before, has to pick up these 2 positions in order to keep his championship hopes alive. For Rageman, it's going to be much more difficult and pretty much over after the race here in Spain. Funky now having a 6-10th lead. Might actually be enough to keep the lead of the race here. We're going to have a look down the inside by Ghost, but he's not going to go for the switch, for the attack. So already a slight difference made, as we see Rageman going for a pit. That's an early pit, but he's going to go for mediums again. He wants to go for the undercut to try and overtake Giggle. So let's see if that's going to work out for him. But that also means that next lap we will see more drivers come into the pit. So likely Giggle and Nick are going to be coming in at the end of next lap, unless Nick wants to make sure that he can go for softs toward the end of the race. And we indeed... Oh, we find Rageman on softs. Okay, so drivers know that they can make the race on 8 laps for the softs. So I think more drivers will go for softs. But yeah, Rageman only went for 1 quali run, so he has an extra set of soft tires towards the end of the race. Jamie, in the meantime, picking up position over Truth, finding himself in P5, P6 provisionally. First 2 runners not making a pit stop yet. We see Odok Shelby, one of the Alfa Romeos, driving a little bit slow. It will be Rageman that is going to overtake them. Giggle actually not going for a pit. And DNF! No, the Ferrari has gone out. This is it. This could be it. This could be the championship decider. It's a crash coming into the pits. We have a full safety car. But this is going to benefit Jamie. Jamie, Truth, Jess, also everyone is now going to come into the pits. But if Funky keeps his lead here, or if he places second, he wins the championship here tonight. Nick has well and truly bottled it here. Rachman has still gotten past the drivers there. He's on the soft, but yeah, all the drivers now going for soft tires, of course. They know that you can make it last towards the end of the race now. And realistically, everyone, even if you've done 2 pit stops already, you're going to have to come in. So, Hooky, Jackamundo, Fozzie Bear, gonna come in. Well, Fozzie Bear maybe not. Has already made that work. But yeah, Funky, Ghost, and Giggle are gonna come in. But disaster for Nick. The Ferrari driver is also going to lose second place in the standings, likely to Rachman now. But that is not even the most important thing. Oh, Nick. Oh, drama here at the ERT round 9 in Spain with a crash in lap 15 by Nick. As we see Funky come into the pits. Don't pick up a penalty here. And a clean pit stop. And you're well on your way to glory. Does he have soft tires remaining? I think he only went for 2 runs. So I think he still has softs. Hards! What? He stopped? No, this must be a glitch. This must be a glitch. Is he actually on hards? Funky is on hards. What is this? Our race leader is on hard compounds, whilst most of the other drivers find themselves on new softs. That must have meant that Funky doesn't have any new tires of either, but what an odd decision. Did something go wrong here? I would love to hear feedback about that from Funky at the end of this race, because now I'll have to defend from the quick soft runners behind him, who are going to be seeing opportunity here. And if for some reason now Funky doesn't pick up enough points, he will still not win the championship. Remember, he needed to take 9 points, which means he needs to place at least 5th. So if he stays in the top 5, he's going to make it work. And we see John also on the hards. So John must have not had tires left anymore either. The gaps behind the safety car at this point are still too large, so the safety car is going to be coming in the end of the next lap. Also crucial information. But oof, this is going to be a hectic end towards the end of the race, where we're going to have 4 full laps of racing. 5 full laps, because 23 also counts. So lap 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. 5 full laps of racing on the hards and the softs. And Rachman still seeing that there are some positions to be gained for him here. Actually, if he scores more points than Funky, he might keep himself in the championship bid. I think if he plays like 2nd here now and Funky goes for 4th or so, I think it might still be enough for him to stay within the race. We will have to see how this unfolds, but as long as the standings are like this, and Funky stays ahead of Rachman, he wins the title here tonight. Can the German driver do it here? Or is the other German driver going to at least keep him waiting for yet another week? A big few laps here back, or left here in the race, as we see Fozzie Bear coming out of the pits. He's gone for an extra pit stop. Him and John will still have to slot in behind the safety car. John also not having the best of races. If we look at the position changes, he's lost 11 places. Shaquaze has lost 11. Truth has lost 7. But great recovery drives. Well, Jackamundo has picked up a few places. Caden actually 6 places up. But also Jamie and Rachman 5 positions up. And Jess finds herself in P6. So good races by them. Stayed out of trouble. And now the craziness is going to ensue. Safety car in this lap. Funky can now dictate the pace. And for the last 5 laps, we're going to have our very own second sprint of the night, with Funky leading the pack, but having to hold off the drivers on softs behind him. Can he make that work? He's likely going to go after turn 13, so pick up the pace now, which is a good moment to do it. But he is going to wait a little bit longer, so perhaps going into the final turn, now we'll have to start. Starts a little late, but he starts late enough to make sure that none of the drivers can go for an overtake onto him. Is using overtake to try and defend from the Aston Martin runners behind him, and they're immediately hot on his tail. He is going to have a very, very tough race on the carts. Truth has picked up some positions. Rachman and Jamie have overtaken Giggle. Jamie actually fighting for a podium here tonight as well, as we see Caden trying to go down the inside of Giggle. Giggle losing a lot of positions here in this opening lap after the safety car. We have a yellow flag. And we see one of the Red Bulls driving slower. The Red Bulls has stopped on track. It's Chiquaise. Chiquaise is DNF'd. We cannot see what exactly has happened to him, but this is going to be another safety car. It doesn't seem like it. So no more safety cars, which means the last 4 laps are going to be driven out cleanly normally. Doc Shelby picks up a penalty. Fozzie Bear also having a penalty. He picks up a place from Giacomundo. We'll be keeping our eye at the front of the field, where Funky immediately drives defensively, using a bit of his overtake, but needs to make sure that he has enough left at every single straight coming from now on. Does not want the drivers behind him to get too close, but DRS is yet to be re-enabled. At the next crossing, DRS will be re-enabled. We have another caution sector 1. That is Matthias, who has gone wide. He has spun out, and yeah, has indeed spun out, has not damaged this car, but also a race to forget for the Haas driver. The other Haas driver, though, is still doing great, finding himself in the lead of this race, but increasingly under more and more pressure by Ghost. Let's go on board with Ghost, making his way into the first DRS zone after turn 9. That's Kamsa. Immediately defensive moves by Funky. Of course, DRS has not been enabled yet. I say very happily that this is a DRS zone, which indeed is, but that does not matter much if you do not have DRS yet. We're going to see that enabled at the start of the next lap, as we saw just a little slide from Funky there, so trying to get good temperature in those hard set of compounds. But now you can see how much more advantage the soft runners do have. He is going to try and go for it. Ghost has the fastest lap so far. Is he going to try and go for the move? He does not want to go for it now. He knows that if he can prolong it to the final lap of the race, that he can win it there. Rachman is not within DRS behind him. He's not under pressure from behind. The only driver he has to overtake is Funky, but if he is going to make it last until the last lap, and Funky picks up P2, he still wins the title. But of course for Ghost that does not matter, because Ghost can make a good jump in the placings and go over Nick's points total and find himself in P3 of the championship. Wins the race here tonight. So a lot at stake here. But the most at stake definitely for the driver in front of Ghost, and that is Funky. So in the meantime, we're going to go over to Jamie, who's having quite a good race on his own. Looking to still hopefully pick up a podium here. If he can overtake a Rachman in the final corner. Jamie don't bit it here. Almost losing the Mercedes there. And is now almost a second behind Rachman. But I think just kept it within DRS range. Is using his overtake. He doesn't have DRS. He actually fell outside the DRS range. That is not good news for him. You're seeing the Ghost not going for the move yet. But next lap he is going to go for it. 2 laps remaining here in Barcelona. We're going to see the title decided here tonight. Or we're going to see some last lap surprises, some late race surprises. Jess finds herself in P5 at the moment. Stellar race she's had. Caden then P6, also an amazing race by him. And Ols with currently in 7th place, also looking up to pick some healthy points with his best result of the season. But our eyes, all of our eyes are peeled at the battle up front here. And we see Ghost coming in closely behind Funky. Funky has little ERS to defend. I think he knows that Ghost is going to take the win. But does it matter? Let's be real, does it matter? P2 is still going to be enough for him. Here we go, lining up, coming into the final lap, overtakes, all gloves are off, and immediately Funky will have to concede. There's no way for him to get and stay ahead. In the meantime, we see Jamie. Is he going to go for a move? He's deciding against it. Picks up a penalty for track limits. No, that would have been an amazing result. It could have been a podium for Jamie. But because he decides against it and goes off the track on the left, picks up track limits. That is also unfortunate for him. And not the way he wants around the race. But that is good news for Jess and Caden, who are going to pick up extra positions because of that. As in the meantime, Funky is still staying close to Ghost. Can Funky still retake the lead of this race? A short tap from behind. He has to do it after turn 9. The DRS zone here takes a lot of risk there, but has to lift a bit. Don't think he has enough to go for the move there. He's gonna stay behind. Seemingly having more grip on the hard set of compounds. Goes very, very wide. Switch back then. Tries to go for it a little. Almost a spin by Ghost. Is he going to keep the lead? Is he going to try and make it work? Too bad into the final corner. But it's Funky who has to concede. The race win goes out to Ghost, but our championship has been decided. Funky picks up the P3 championship with 3 races to go. Rageman rounds off the podium. And a wonderful placing by Jess. P4 for Jess. Caden in 5th. Jamie comes out in P6. The McLarens, or the Mercedes is P6 and 7. Truth in P8. John in P9. But we are on board with our championship winner, placing 2nd here in Catalunya, looking for that dive in the final corner, but knowing that he doesn't need to make that work. He doesn't have to go for the race win here to make it all count. This is what he needed to do. A win in the sprint race, a 2nd place in the main race. He has done it, people. He has done it. But with the race win going to Ghost, the celebrations for him tonight. But all the way through, the big winner here is Funky. A great final lap that we've had there. Heartbreak for Jamie as well. We'll be looking to see his remarks in the chat in a moment. So I'll be taking you through the comments in the chat there. I'm not even sure if the drivers are well aware of who, if someone has the title already sealed, all sealed and booked. But yeah, Funky, the points for him are enough, but we're going to go, of course, and only look at the results of the race, which are important for us. Ghost picks up the win, Funky in 2nd, then it's Rachman, followed by Jess, Caden, Jamie, Ols, Truth, John, Fozzie Bear, Matthias, and Adok Shelby rounding off our point scores with another point, a point for fastest lap going to Ghost. And then from P13 onwards, we find Giggle, followed by Jackamundo, Hookie, Shikways, and Nick, who had the faster laps of those, but because he DNF'd, I think that's going to be going to Giggle. So still a point for him. But what a final race we have had here tonight, folks. What a great, great race we've had at the Circuit de Catalunya. And not only a big shout out to our race winner Ghost, but the biggest shout out going out there tonight to Rageman. Let's see if he knows. Does he know that he's won the championship? Let's have a look at the chat. Do they know? I think they know. Ghost mentioning was very careful not to cause you any issues in the championship. They were very close at times. But do they know? The winning streak in Spain is history. That is what Rageman mentioned. But a 3rd place for him is another great, great result. But do the drivers know? Rachman saying that Funky should have gone for the dive in the final corner, but I think Funky wisely deciding that that was not the move. That move was not on. But indeed, if he had gone for that and that ended in heartbreak, then it would have been Rachman stealing that victory away there. But that is not what happened there. And yeah, Jamie also mentioned bottled the podium. Very unfortunate final lap for him. But what a massive race we've had here tonight. If we have another look at our calendar, you guys will see what is still at stake, because the fight for P2 in the championship is well on, for which I believe Ghost has now at least leapfrogged Nick, but I'm not sure if he's gone past Rachman as well. But the fight is going to be heating up between Ghost, Rachman and Nick for P2 in the standings. P1 has been decided. We have our championship winner decided. And we still have 3 races to go, so no more looks for the championship title there, but still some nice races. First off, next week we stop at Singapore, the 22nd of October. Then the 29th we'll be going to Silverstone, but unfortunately I will not be here for the race in Silverstone, so hopefully one of my co-commentators can fill in and stream this wonderful race for you once again here on Twitch. And then for the final race, once again, we'll be back the 12th of November with a season finale, another sprint weekend on the Circuit of the Americas. In the meantime, what I can see, Funky indeed wanted to go for softs, but the game decided to put him to hards. So that's what happened to him. That's why we were surprised to see him on the hards. He did indeed have new softs, was not able to use them. Likely lost 1 position because of that, but in the end, not the end of the world for him. Looks like there was contact between Giggle and Rachman as well earlier on in the race, so that is why we saw Rachman dropping back. But whether that will have any impact on the results, we're going to find out next week. As it stands now, I think it's quite clear that Funky has won it. But with the results not being finalized, of course, I cannot call him out as the definite winner yet. Although I think it was already quite clear before the race tonight that it was going to happen sooner or later. And now, seemingly, it has happened. And the confirmation of that will come next week. This, at least, was the race for tonight. But we're not going to queue out before we have a short word from our sponsors. For the season 23, we have a 2,500 prize pool, which is also a £50 voucher for PS or Amazon for the winner of the championship, with the top 5 getting free entry into the next season, and the winners of the constructors also free entry into the next season. NLR coming out with the big sponsors, the big prizes. The winner of the series will be in with a shot to win the FGT Elite Light Cockpit and Elite ES1 Sim Racing seat. So either the winner of P1, 2 or 3 tier will get that. As for the 2nd and 3rd place drivers, they will be in with a chance to win the GT Light Cockpit and the ES2 Racing seat in combination with that. And for all drivers, they're in with a shot to win the NLR Wheel Stand 2.0 if they have participated in at least 10 races in season 23. So in 10 of the 20 or 10 of the 12 races in total. Furthermore, powered by Aztec, who is going to give these wonderful boots to the shortest combined qualifying time of the series, as well as Pure Sim Gear, providing either the gloves or socks to the driver with the most fastest laps and poles combined. Mystery Sim Box for the driver who is the winner of the driver rankings, which could very well be Funky if he keeps up his pace, winning the mystery shirt box. And we are furthermore powered by Vespertine, ERT, with their ERT Go and Get Stuff award, where you can win this wonderful t-shirt if you attend all races, finish outside top 3 and complete all pre and post race interviews. And then finally powered by SimGrid and the Mental Health Foundation. Now, before we're going to queue out, a little bit of an important note that you guys need to know about the races next week and the week after. Because, of course, next week and the week after, we will have real-world races on Codem. and the week after in Mexico, means that the race times are going to be slightly different. When tonight our race started at 6 p.m. British time, that is 7 p.m. European time for you, that is going to be slightly different for the races to come. Let's see if I can find the time, but I believe it was 4 p.m. that we're going to be starting. I believe it was in the official announcements where it was posted. Yeah, so P3 will be at 4 p.m. British time or 5 p.m. European time. So that is when you're going to find us next week. Next week we will alternate again. So next week you will find us once more on YouTube, with the P2 tier being on Twitch. Currently you can find the P2 tier on YouTube, as they have likely just rounded off their qualifying session, with a P1 tier to be starting in 30 minutes here on the Twitch channel of 1UP Racing. That's it for P3 tier. Huge shout out to Funky for doing his work here and clinging on and taking that championship. For results are going to be finalized as is, as well as for Ghost to picking up the race win here tonight. This was it for P3. I was your host for tonight. My name is Mitsky, and I'll see you again next week, 4 p.m. British time on Sunday, with the race in Singapore, the street circuit, where we're going to see, no doubt, more action, more fights for P2 in the standings, and likely some more safety cars. Have a very good evening, and see you next week.